Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on over to another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I am your host, Matt Tardio. Today, we're going to be going over the legal deportation of Mr. Garcia and how all of that actually went down. We're going to actually, I don't know how to explain this, but I am a bit floored, I guess, by the amount of people in the United States of America that are backing up a freaking terrorist. Absolutely blows my flipping mind that this individual has so much support. And there is so little understanding for the legal process of how all of this stuff actually takes place. And it's not actually that hard to figure out. It's not really that hard to figure out. And to explain to you even more, I know last night I ended up doing a report on this about why I find it so absolutely egregious that people are supporting him, because obviously he is a member of a foreign terror organization. As a member of a foreign terror organization here in the United States illegally, you lose a lot of the different protections that other people might be granted who may just be here illegally when it comes to deportation. Federal judges don't apply here. The only judge that actually is going to end up applying here is an immigration judge. And I'm going to show you legally all of the different things that go into that. I got asked yesterday by the true supporters over on this channel to look into this. And so that's exactly what I did. And I'm going to be honest. When I started looking into this, I was shocked at how simple of a process it is. We're going to debunk one of the things that all of the media is claiming, that he was never convicted of being a member of MS-13. Well, guess what? There is no legal process for determining whether or not somebody is a member of MS-13. There's three people that do it: ICE, DHS, and the FBI. Those are the three people that end up determining whether or not you're qualified as a member of MS-13. So yesterday, when Pam Bondi actually ended up sharing some certificates, let me just open this up for you real quick, and then we're gonna get into how all this works. But yesterday, Pam Bondi ended up sharing this certificate, and when she ended up sharing this certificate right here, and you can see U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Remember, I told you there is three organizations that are able to determine whether or not you're a member of either the gang or the FTO. And in this case, it's both. It started off as a gang, and then it got declared a foreign terror organization by Secretary Marco Rubio. It's his authority. And we're talking about authority from the executive branch to be able to go out and designate these things and make it happen. Tristan Allen came in gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Really appreciate your early donation. Oh, dude, you did that twice. Tristan Allen came in gifting out 10. And so over here at the top of this document, so obviously you can see here, and people are using this to focus on like never convicted of a crime or some BS, something like that. It doesn't matter. The law doesn't state that you have to be convicted of a crime if you're a foreign terrorist to be able to get kicked out of the country. I want you to think about this. If we had a member of ISIS here in America that was in America illegally, do you think that this member of ISIS and his claims for asylum would matter? Seriously, think about that. Think about that. If we had a known member of Hamas that was here in the United States, would his claims for asylum matter? The only place where this is actually going to come into play, and we're going to cover it in a minute, is maybe if somebody like from the IRGC that defected, that was here in the United States of America illegally, and they were up for deportation, and they'd have to go back to Iran, and they were going to get tortured, literally tortured, if they get sent back to Iran. But all of those things are granted on a very limited basis. And again, when we talk about who's going to appeal and where it's going to go, all of this stuff is going to end up going up, not to a federal judge, but to an immigration judge. The immigration judges are the ones that determine all of these things. And yes, retroactively under U.S. law, even if you had asylum, if you end up being a member of FTO, which, by the way, his asylum wasn't even fully granted. It was like a stay, basically, on deportation that he ended up getting for the circumstances of his country to change. Now that gang no longer operates in the country, so if they were to review it, he'd end up being deportable anyways. But none of that even matters, and we're going to cover all of that here in just a sec. Due process is a constitutional right. The executive branch can prove it in court. Straw Hat 83. I love the fact that you brought that up. So let's go ahead and get into law, and let's talk about this real quick as we look over this. Let's talk about due process. I actually wrote an article, you guys. You can find this up over on my X account. You know what, though? I'm going to pin this down over in the chat so that you guys can take it and you can fact check it as I go along. Now, it's important for me to state before I get into this that I am not All right, a constitutional attorney. I am not a federal attorney. I'm not an attorney by any rights, but what I am is a person with common sense that has the ability to read. And so if you guys want to read along with me, if you want to see exactly what it is I'm talking about and all these different laws, because I'm going to be citing a bunch of different laws. So you guys feel free to go over and grab these laws. I'm going to be, there it is. It's pinned up at the top of the chat. So you guys can go over and you can grab these laws and you can go over these different laws. Let's take a look at what's happening here. This is the article I wrote, and this is what I'm going to be referencing as we go in. But the article has all of the different applicable laws that are written in it. So yes, I'm using my own source, but my source contains all of the original source material, if that makes sense. All right, so let's start here. He's no longer a gang member. He's a terrorist, period. He's a freaking terrorist. Here is the formal designation by freaking Secretary of State Marco Rubio. All right, and here is the organization right here. All right, Mara Solvatra, what the hell ever, MS-13. There it is. When did this happen? Let's go take a look. When was it signed? February 6, 2025. When did he get arrested? In March. So him being a member now of a foreign terror organization designated by Marco Rubio makes him deportable. All right, period. How do we know he's a member of a foreign terror organization? Refer back to over here. Refer back to what I had just showed you. This document right here, and it's dated from 2019. I used to actually watch this stupid channel. Oh, God forbid you learn something new that's outside of your point of view, right? So here he is. Member of MS-13, says right up here at the top. All right. So that's where it's at. I wholeheartedly believe in the Constitution, and that's why I'm going over this so that you guys can understand. Yesterday in the video that I put out, I said, obviously, I do not want due process taken away, and neither should you. Neither should you. But this is a terrorist, and I'm explaining to you the current process for designating somebody a terrorist. Are you ready for it? Because you don't go to a court of law to get designated a terrorist. You don't. I told you there is 3 organizations legally, and I'm going to show you the legal, and it's in the freaking thing pinned up at the top of the chat. There's 3 organizations that are allowed to identify people as terrorists. They don't go before a federal judge to get determined as terrorists. They don't. They absolutely do not go before a federal judge. They don't go before any judge to get determined as to be a terrorist. This is not hearsay. This is right here. U.S. Department of Homeland Security, they have it. All right, so who does it? The FBI, DHS, or ICE. 8 U.S. Code 1103, paragraph A. All right. This is the legal reference. Tom Tuttle, no. It's going to apply for anybody inside of the freaking borders with other restrictions on it. Yes and no. But right here, 8 U.S. Code 1103, paragraph A. All right. This is what allows the FBI, DHS, or ICE operating under the legal authority to designate them. And there's only a couple things that they actually need in order to designate them a freaking foreign terrorist organization based on that. I hope you're ready for this, because it's not nearly as much as you would think. It's really not. They only need to prove that he is affiliated. That's it. He doesn't actually have to be taking part in any freaking gang activity. All right. Let me bring this up. I'm getting it right over here so I can read it in myself, because it's a lot of BS. A lot of stuff that you have to filter through to actually get to it. He is allowed to be removed. Here we go. So that's where they derive their authority from in order to do it. That's where they get it. And in addition to that, ICE can allege, all right, they are inadmissible, all right, if they're a member of the FTO, they're providing material support, or they're engaged in terrorist activity. That comes from 8 U.S. Code 1182 A3B. Okay? They are inadmissible in the United States for terrorist activity, but that is also the same U.S. Code that they are allowed to deport them on if they're a member of the foreign terror organization. So how do we determine whether or not they're a member of an FTO? Well, it's actually quite simple. nope, not the FTO designation, excuse me. So many damn notes on this thing. When you get into it, there is not a conviction. Allegations or affiliation are reviewed in asylum hearings, removal proceedings, or immigration benefit denials. That's not what I was looking for. Here we go. Affiliation can be shown through this. Here's how affiliation is shown. This comes from 8 U.S. Code 1182A3B and INA 212A3B, inadmissible for terrorist activity. This is how they determine the membership for terrorist organizations. It is covered, all right? This is where it's covered. U.S. Code, 8 U.S. Code, 1182A, 3B. What it says is affiliation can be shown through communications, travel to FTO-controlled regions. None of those two things are going to apply. Social media, which doesn't apply, or eyewitnesses or informants. So eyewitnesses or informants are the two things that they used in this document to designate him a member of MS-13. When you get to the third page of this document and you read it, what it actually says is that one of their confidential informants identified him as an active member of MS-13. As a matter of fact, they show the clique he's at, his membership status. They even give his dang moniker inside of the frickin' gang. This is, again, all the way back in 2019. Tristan Allen says the people on the left don't want them to be removed so they can get their vote. Probably. But this document that got shared by Pam Bondi yesterday 100% reveals how he got frickin' dimed out. And that confidential informant, whether you like it or not, is allowed and is admissible in court. All of that is proven behind the scenes. So when it goes before the court, the judge can actually look at it and say, yep, and it doesn't have to go on record. Why? Because he's providing valuable intelligence of who these people are, and they show that intelligence to be reliable over time on this particular type of a deal. This is a case closed portion. Legally, by U.S. Code, and I just gave it to you, legally, by U.S. Code, he is a freaking designated member of a foreign terror organization, and it can be retroactive. All right? Again, if you want to look it up, 8 U.S. Code 1182, paragraphs A, 3, and B, and INA 212, A, 3, and B. Covers membership in a designated FTO. How it can be proven. It is proven through eyewitnesses and informants, social media, travel to the frickin' controlled regions, communications, and support activities. But key being eyewitnesses or informants. Those are allowed to be used. And in this document right here by DHS, dated March 28th, 2019, it lays out how he is identified as a member of MS-13. That's it. You can say it's not case closed. He doesn't have to be convicted. I just gave you U.S. law. And whether or not you choose to take U.S. law and actually like pull that in your head, that's on you, my friend. That's on you. You might not like what I just said, but it's the law. So all of you guys that are sitting down here talking about constitutional law and everything else, and is it legal? What they're doing is illegal. No, it's not. You guys, you're so far off. It is perfectly legal what they did because he was designated a member of a foreign terror organization. He doesn't have to be convicted in a court. Nowhere in the law does it say that he has to be convicted in a court of law to be identified as a member of a gang or a foreign terror organization. That doesn't exist. As a matter of fact, the only laws that are on the books for those things are enhancement statutes. Enhancement statute. So let's say I go and firebomb a freaking building, then I get charged with arson, attempted homicide, or homicide, whatever it is. And then you get the enhancement statute for being either a member of a gang or an FTO. That's how that works. You don't have to be convicted because if there's an active ISIS member here, and to think about it now, if there's an active ISIS member here inside of the United States of America, would you want them here, especially if they're here illegally? No. Do you have to wait for them to break the law? Do you have to wait for them to kill people before you deport them? The answer is no. And when they're identified, like this individual was in 2019, it doesn't go before a federal judge. It goes before an immigration judge. I'll say that again. It goes before an immigration judge. And that immigration judge gets to determine whether or not they get legal status. Now, here's the catch. In 2019, MS-13 was not a foreign terror organization. It wasn't. 2019, MS-13 was not a foreign terror organization. And if you like law, let's talk about it. Under 8 U.S. Code 1158, paragraph C2B, asylum can be terminated if an individual is engaged in terrorist activity. This is a quote, is engaged in terrorist activity or is a member of a designated foreign terror organization. Here you go. So here's your applicable law. It's right there. And if you want to go double check my work, you're more than welcome to. It's pinned at the top of the chat. And what's really sad is that people can't read and that they can't go and look at this. Under 8 U.S. Code 1158 C2B, asylum can be terminated if an individual is engaged in terror activity or is a designated member of an FTO. That means that when that order was signed by Marco Rubio designating MS-13 a foreign terror organization, he automatically became a terrorist. Period. Sean Hughes says, it doesn't matter, Matt. The president of El Salvador already said he is not returning him or releasing him from prison. Exactly. Tristan Allen says El Salvador doesn't have to return him. You are absolutely correct, and you guys can scream and cry about it till you're blue in the face. Now, if there is another exception, like I said, I started this off stating, look, I'm not an attorney, but I can read. I can read really clear. And some of the shit doesn't need to be spun out of control in the way in which you do. Krista adds, you don't have to leave the U.S. then and move to Canada. Sure. If you don't like what I'm telling you, these are this is the legal process in this country. So the way it looks, all right, is you have a designated foreign terror organization, okay, designated foreign terror organization, and then you have the legal process that goes into it, which is either by ICE, DHS, or the FBI, that using those other freaking processes that I gave you is able to identify somebody as a member of a foreign terror organization, okay, which right here on the screen, here is your identification that he is a member of a foreign terror organization. And then he's subject to immediate removal, not as a member of a gang, but as a terrorist. As a terrorist, your claim for asylum doesn't freaking apply. There is one exception to that rule, which I went over earlier, and I'll bring it back up for you guys because it's all the way down here at the bottom in my freaking notes because I ended up having to get it. They can request asylum, but do you know who gets to deny it? An immigration judge. Well, excuse me, they can't request asylum. There's something different that they apply for. It's not asylum. It is one, they can where'd it go? So many notes on this, it's insane. It is something different. It has to do with being tortured. If there's a risk of them being tortured, then there is a limited process which never gets freaking approved for people to do it. That's it. There you go. FTO membership will be a bar from asylum. They can pursue narrow protections like a CAT, which is Convention Against Torture. It doesn't matter. That's what they get. So the guy isn't a gang member. He's a terrorist. You can give a subcategory of gang member, but at the very top, as far as U.S. law is concerned, he's a terrorist. And as a terrorist, he is deemed deportable. And I think what people are really starting to get pissed off about here is that the entire process, as far as I'm concerned, when I look over this, and again, I'm not a federal judge, I'm just stating what I believe when I see this and the way the law reads to the common man when you go over it, that's where it's at. Tristan Allen, the administration is not ignoring the Supreme Court, you crazy people. They ruled a district judge can't interfere with immigration. Correct. Correct. What you're talking about is you're talking about executive action, executive powers that were being administered when it came to deporting him. He is a foreign terrorist. He is a member of a foreign terrorist organization. here illegally in the United States of America. Asylum does not apply. The one freaking statute or whatever it was that I gave, let me grab that back again, is the only thing that applies, all right, which is the Convention Against Torture, which he's going to have to freaking go up against. So all of these calls about asylum, none of that shit matters because he's a terrorist. Period. He was legally identified as a terrorist. That hasn't changed. And the products, the freaking evidence they found upon his arrest, the different firearms, money, drugs, whatever the hell it was, all of those different things go into substantiating that as well. And it's up to ICE, DHS, and an immigration judge whether or not he gets to stay in this country as a terrorist. They put his ass on an airplane and flew him out. I guarantee you he saw an immigration judge. And that immigration judge said, no, you don't get to stay here. You're a freaking terrorist. And they sent him out. That's just a fact. And I think the other big problem that a lot of us are having, not only is he a terrorist, the man's a freaking wife beater. I put this out in last night's video. Nobody seems to care. The man's a wife beater. We've got the freaking evidence of it. His wife literally went before a judge and presented evidence that is the case. Went before a freaking judge and presented the evidence that that's the case. I'm about to pull it up for you right here. If you want, you can go look it up. Case details, District Court for Prince George's County Civil System. So, civil protection order, temporary. Here's the case number. You're more than welcome to go over to Maryland and look it up. 0502SP0119272021. Feel free to go look it up. And right here, all right, domestic violence. Order valid through 6/17/21, issued on 5/5/21. Why was it given for a month? Because she went in seeking an emergency protection order in order to protect herself from her husband. Why? Here's what the judge said. The court found, and I quote, reasonable grounds to believe, end quote, that Garcia had, quote, punched and scratched, ripped off shirt, grabbed and bruised, end quote, his wife, and, may I add, the mother of his kids. So not only is he a terrorist, he's a wife beater. Now, he didn't go through the entire criminal process. He was never convicted of this. But the judge found reasonable grounds to believe in order to grant the order. If you ask why she didn't go back to court, the obvious answer for anybody that's served in a law enforcement capacity is the cycle of abuse and how the cycle of abuse actually works. This crap is so, like, it happens so often in these cases. Okay, so he's the bio dad of one. Great. Stepdad of how many? This crap happens so often, it's not even funny. And his wife comes back now, and she's in the media, responds after restraining order is revealed. The wife of the Maryland man mistakenly deported to El Salvador is criticizing the Trump admin for publicly releasing details of the 2021 restraining order against him. Jennifer Sura, whose husband, Garcia, was deported just before the U.S. Supreme Court ordered his return. Key words here. He was deported before the Supreme Court ordered his return. He was deported legally under the legal process in which I gave you, and now he's in another country, and there's jack and shit they can do about it. Called to move an unjust act of abduction. Cool. Her terrorist, wife-beating husband was abducted, according to her. Great. An exclusive statement to News 21, or Newsweek, all right? The documents included her 2021, blah, 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 blah. The temporary order barred him from doing it. Here we go. This is what she said. After surviving domestic violence in a previous relationship, I acted out of caution following a disagreement with him by seeking a civil protection order in case things escalated. Things did not escalate, and I decided not to follow through with the civil court process. We were able to work through the situation privately as a family. So here's the catch. Either his wife lied to the court because the judge found reasonable grounds to believe that those things happened, or She's lying today. One of those two things happened. You can't just go before a judge and say, my husband beat me. I need a protection order. There is very limited grounds in which that would happen. So his wife is discrediting herself in one of two ways, by either saying, I lied back then, or I'm lying today. That's it. You need proof. Thank you, Paige. It's not as easy as people like to make it out to be. There is limited cases where that happens, but you still need to have some sort of proof. And then the follow-on hearing that they have is what would grant it even further, because you have a right to efface your accuser. James O'Rourke, good morning, sir. This is not a new NFG hat, no, but I should go get one. This is, beyond the shadow of a doubt, either a lying spouse or a victim that is recanting her story as it normally occurs. That's it. And I think people in the United States of America are getting a bit upset about it. I can't, for the life of me, make a better statement than Carl Higbie did right here.
I'm tired of criminals being perceived as the victim. George Floyd, Michael Brown, Jordan Neely, Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, and now Carmela Anthony. He's the guy on trial for, allegedly at this point, stabbing an honor student at a track meet in the heart. George Floyd was a drug addict resisting arrest with a rap sheet. Michael Brown robbed a convenience store on video and then tried to take a cop's gun when he was shot and killed. Jordan Neely was threatening innocent passengers on a subway. Trayvon Martin was suspiciously looking into windows of an apartment complex and then violently attacked a neighborhood watchman who confronted him. Eric Gardner was resisting arrest for illegally dealing cigarettes for like the nth time. And now Carmela Anthony, who by all accounts, allegedly, fatally.
You know, I'll give Eric Gardner a pass on this one, maybe, because the cop did put his arm around the dude's neck, which ultimately resulted in asphyxiation, if I remember correctly. So that one I'll give a pass on. Other than that, though, this man is spitting some facts.
Stabbed a young high school athlete in the heart in front of a ton of people. His bail was just reduced from $1 million to $250,000, which was posted immediately by donations from those who embrace him as the victim, totaling nearly $500,000 and counting, by the way. Like this pastor who said, Carmela Anthony is safe at home. We celebrate a victory for justice, for family, and for the power of people coming together to protect our youth. Really? Where were you protecting the guy he allegedly stabbed, Reverend? What's even more insane, according to reports, his family is going to be used.
No. And to address this comment down here, call him Colson. She says, or him. I can't tell. Sorry, your picture's really small. So long story short, he's illegal, sent back to El Salvador. Then El Salvador put him in prison because he's possibly affiliated with MS-13. Is that right? Partially. So in 2019, all right, he gets caught with all of these other freaking folks. That's how he ends up hitting the blotter for being a member of MS-13. And he's here illegally. So they sought to deport him back to El Salvador. And that's when the immigration judge and the judges intervened. And they said, well, there might be a claim for asylum here. And then they granted him a stay here in the United States until the situation's changed. I.e., that gang is no longer in existence over there, which is true. And it was all for some BS. If you go and you read over the actual court document, it's all BS. All of it. Complete and total BS. So they took his ass. As soon as they were designated an FTO, now he's a terrorist. And guess what doesn't apply when you're a terrorist? Asylum. That asylum order means jack and shit because he's now a terrorist, period. And then he goes before the immigration judge. They go, yep, he's a foreign terrorist or he's a terrorist. He's here in this country illegally. Deport his ass. Now, if he was a U.S. citizen, it would be a different story, but he's not. If he was a U.S. citizen, then that due process would actually come into play, but he's not. So he goes before an immigration judge, and the immigration judge says, bye-bye, and they deport him. Then the Supreme Court looks at it and says, wait a minute. Wait a hot minute here. But that's the Supreme Court that's interfering with an executive action. These branches of government are separate for a reason. And that is currently what the administration is arguing. And either way, they deported him under legal authority at the time. They didn't break the law. They didn't do anything wrong. They deported him under the legal authority that is already in U.S. law, period. It's law. And that's how they deported his ass. And then the Supreme Court, after his deportation, tries to come out and say, yeah, they got to take him back. There wasn't a law broken. All of the freaking statutes that I just read to you are perfectly legal. And it's retroactively applied to the immigration. No, they don't. They would only get that due process if they're U.S. citizens when it comes to deportation. The due process would be if they broke a law. Now, he did break a law. He was in the United States illegally. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. So, Mike Ramsey, Ramy, I hate to offend you there, brother. There isn't really a due process. The due process is he gets brought before the immigration judge. The immigration judge says whether or not he can and can't be in the country, not anybody else. It doesn't have to go before the Supreme Court. It doesn't have to go anywhere. That's it. That's the law. I can go back over it again if you'd like, and you can go look it up. It's pinned at the top of the chat. Feel free to go fact check it. That's how it works.
Using the legal defense fund to buy a new house, claiming it's because of threats, which I think is BS. This is the same kid who was questioned about another alleged assault 2 months ago that was mishandled internally by the school system. That's according to CBS. This is so typical. Anytime the perpetrator, or in this case, still alleged perpetrator, is black, there's like this groundswell to make it about race. And because he's black, he's therefore a victim in their eyes. This was the entire Black Lives Matter movement, a complete grift.
And this is what Tristan Allen says. He says the administration is not ignoring the Supreme Court, you crazy people. They ruled a district judge can't interfere with immigration. And that is correct. Immigration judge is different. And again, according to U.S. law, when you're an illegal alien in the United States of America and identified as a member of a foreign terror organization, which he was, you go before the immigration judge for deportation, and the man was deported. Asylum does not apply to illegal aliens who are members of a foreign terror organization. It does not. Go look it up. Jaffo Actual. Any guess why so many folks are crying about a deported gang member, but not about the Uyghurs in China? Rhetorical question at best. Thanks for all your work. Yeah, because nobody knows what you're talking about, Jaffo, number one. And number two, it's not a hot button topic that they could use to try to dismantle the frickin' Trump administration. That would be my guess, even though it is a perfectly legal process that took place. Period. One judge you can't get away from. God. Correct. It doesn't matter. The man is a foreign terrorist here illegally in the United States of America. Those two facts are indisputable. He was identified legally as a member of a foreign terror organization. That's what the document's for. Those two facts are indisputable. He's here in the country illegally, and he's a member of a foreign terror organization. Those two facts are indisputable. The process then follows. He goes before the immigration judge. He's immediately subject to deportation. Immediately subject to deportation, which clearly the judge said, okay. And I'm sure that information is going to come out here in the near future. I haven't seen it yet, but I promise you it's there. Because now they're ordering a look into DHS and ICE to see what the hell actually happened. They followed the law, guaranteed. In order to get that frickin' plane, in order to get him out of the country, in order to get the paperwork, that would have been the paperwork needed to do so. Again, the asylum does not apply to illegal aliens who are members of a foreign terror organization. That is in U.S. law, whether you like it or not. And he is an illegal alien here in this country, illegally, and he's a member of a designated foreign terror organization identified and documented by DHS legally by the legal grounds in order to do so. There is no judicial process for identifying you as a member of an FTO. It's done by DHS, the FBI, or ICE. That's it. That's what's written in law. And they give the way in order to do so. He gone. He ain't coming back. He's not coming back. And this crap that Carl's talking about is the same thing that's pissing off the rest of Americans. You guys are whining and complaining for a wife-beating terrorist here inside of the United States of America illegally. Trying to say that he's owed some sort of legal due process when I just explained to you the legalities behind the entire thing. And no matter how many times I do it until I'm blue in the face and all of the facts are pinned at the top of the chat, you can go over, click on the document, look at the applicable U.S. law that actually applies to, and you can go check it out. And it's really freaking sad that even when presented with those facts, that you guys are saying, no, that's not the law. And I'm saying, boom, there's a law. Sean Hughes says, if he's not an MS-13 member, then why would he say he's scared to go back to El Salvador because a rival gang will kill him? No. He was saying he was scared to go back to El Salvador back in 2019 because his mother ran some freaking underground, like freaking cookie business or some shit. And that he was part of that. And that this little tiny freaking gang that used to exist over there would go over and they'd be like, hey, you're making money. You owe us money to get protection. And that was what they were doing. And then they wanted him to join the gang, so his family sent him to the U.S. And he doesn't want to go back there because he thinks they're going to kill him. And all those are just his personal statements. No other evidence was provided other than his personal testimony to that. And so they granted him a temporary stay. But now that he's a member of a designated foreign terror organization, asylum does not apply. Why? Because we don't want members of a foreign terror organization who have entered the country illegally to be in the United States of America. And all of that is thrown inside a law. Fox McCloud, ironically, the same people with Ukrainian flags in their bio are the same ones yapping about not having a border. Wow. Yep. There you go. That is a gigantic piece of irony in the situation now, isn't it? A country whose border was extremely disrespected, where a lot of people ended up getting killed and continue to get killed to this day, are complaining about this. It's mind-boggling to me that there's people in the United States of America who want a terrorist to remain inside of the United States of America. Cat dog, the evidence is just contradictory. No, it's not. You know what we're going to do for this? Because apparently this is such a polarized topic. I'm going to go over to the Discord. So if you're a true supporter, you can come into the Discord and you can debate this with me. A lot of you guys that are in the chat right now, guess what? You're Discord members, or you're at least true supporters. And so you can come in here and you can debate this. I'll go ahead and I'll open it up right now. That's that beautiful freaking succulent sound that you were hearing. You guys are welcome to come in here and you're welcome to talk about it. And we could look up the actual law, the applicable law to go over this. I'm going to let Carl finish trashing on everybody before I bring people up. That's what I'm going to do. As soon as Carl is done trashing on everybody, I'm going to go ahead and bring everybody up. And in the meantime, as everybody's pouring in here, because I know you're going to want to talk about this, as everybody's pouring in, I'm going to let Carl finish trashing on how big of a joke our country is, and then we'll get into it.
It was a shakedown on companies collecting billions of dollars in donations from like all these associated groups, and it didn't address a single issue. They didn't it didn't improve one black life except for the people in charge of it, like Patrice Cullors. The only people who enriched themselves were the head of that organization. All these people who I just named had negative track records, multiple arrests, seemingly violent or criminal history. Yet
Matt,
most of the media and a huge swath of mainly the Democrat Party, remember Kamala Harris bailed some of these people out, rushed to hail them all as heroes. And how did it go when the races were reversed? When Daniel Penny, a meritoriously honored Marine, defended himself and other passengers on that train from someone who was threatening to kill them, the same media called him a racist psychopath. Kyle Rittenhouse, no criminal record whatsoever, goes down there to help out, clean some graffiti, defends himself against 3 people, one of which was apparently a pedophile. He's made out to be the second coming of Satan. And what happened? They were both found innocent at these trials. Can we talk about actually treating criminals as criminals instead of praising them as our societal heroes? I'm so over this.
You and me both, Carl. You and me both, buddy. Yes, for those over in the Discord, I am here. Brian, how you doing this morning, friend?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. How do you feel about this entire situation?
He's a terrorist. He was here
Exactly.
illegally. There's evidence beyond evidence of him being affiliated, let's just say affiliated with MS-13, which is a designated terrorist organization. And if you have an affiliation, like if you're affiliated with Al-Qaeda, if you're affiliated with Hezbollah, you are considered a part of them.
Right.
Guilty by association.
Correct. You can be associated with them. You can be caught with them. That's one of the ways. So they gave they gave 3 pieces of evidence within the DHS document for how he was affiliated with MS-13 and how they identified him as a member of MS-13. Number 1 was the clothes that he was wearing, and they broke it down with the money over the eyeballs and his freaking hat and all that BS on why that's all gang related. Number 2, a confidential informant who had been proven over time to be extremely reliable. And then number 3, by being around 2 other known members of MS-13. They are not allowed to hang around other freaking non-gang, or they're not allowed to hang around non-gang members. That's how they identified him, with 3 key pieces of evidence, and that's what got him on that DHS document as a member of MS-13 active.
And never mind the let's take the MS-13 completely out of the picture. He's still a criminal, even though he was never formally convicted of domestic violence because his partner decided not to further pursue the issue. He still has that on his record that he had a TPO for domestic violence.
Correct.
So,
hey, Matt, my question to that. Hold on. Hey, Brian, if you don't mind me interjecting. My question to that with the TPO, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he had the TPO and she further decided not to pursue, what is the chances that she was threatened?
Extremely high. Welcome to the cycle of violence, man. And this is exactly what happens every single time. And it's not... Listen,
if you were to pursue, other gang members would kill her.
Other gang members could kill her, number 1, or he could do it. But what's even worse about it is the way it works, and I understand this stuff very deeply on a personal level now, this whole cycle of freaking abuse that ends up taking place in these relationships, all right, is you end up like developing essentially like a codependency upon this person, right, to where they do little things. It's really messed up. It's really messed up. It's really messed up. And so the fact that she just came out and said that she was in a previous abusive relationship and then found herself in another one goes directly in line what most victims end up finding themselves in. And so part of it is explained by the cycle of abuse, and the other part of it is explained by exactly what you just said, the probability of threats, because he's a freaking terrorist. The fact that she came out to the media yesterday and is stating this stuff very well could be that she's being influenced by other people threatening her.
Yeah. Now, another thing that I was bringing to the point, the 9-0 Supreme Court ruling was if they decided to bring him back, not that the administration had to bring him back. But it was also a 9-0 ruling on district judges and non-immigration judges to not get involved in the immigration process. So all these people want to flip out. You need to go read that 9-0 ruling more thoroughly.
It's really cut and dry. And what I think is happening here is the media is taking things and spinning it out of control as if something illegal is going on. And the sad truth is absolutely, well, it's not even sad truth. It's just the truth. Nothing illegal took place. When they said his status changed, they weren't lying. You know how it says like I think his wife had ended up coming out saying it, and it said like when he got arrested, his status had changed. That's what they told him. And then all of a sudden he gets deported. His status did change. It changed from a gang member to a terrorist here in the United States of America illegally which would then subject him to those other laws that I stated earlier. He goes before the immigration judge. Any asylum granted before doesn't apply to foreign terrorists in the United States of America illegally. And he's subject to immediate deportation, which clearly took place.
Exactly.
Everything else is bullshit.
I just love watching the left flip out over this because they do not care about the American people, and it's being proven. They do not give a damn. They only care about votes.
Again,
the only reason why they want to keep these people here is to get their vote because they are going to vote Democrat. They are never going to vote Republican. Let's look at the 2020 to the 2024 election. Where did the 15 million?
You're cutting out, buddy.
Can you hold on? Give me 1 second.
All right. Let me go to somebody else real quick. Yep, I got you.
Okay. I said, let's go to the 2020 election to the 2024 election.
Okay.
Where did the 15 million votes go that Biden beat Trump by?
Oh, I'm not going to get into this. I'm not going to get into the election. I'm not going to get into the election crap. I'm just trying to stick to legal facts right now. I'm just trying to stick to legal facts. That's what I'm trying to stick to.
Back on topic. That one case you were going over with the athlete that was stabbed in Texas, according to what's been going on, it's looking like it's leaning towards self-defense. But even if it's self-defense, as a cop, wouldn't a high schooler having a knife on high school property, using it in self-defense, still be like a huge no-no?
Well, let's talk about the laws of self-defense and how that would apply. So number one, like self-defense, it doesn't have to necessarily be proportional, i.e. you hit me in the face and I hit you back in the face, right? Like I'm allowed to do a little bit more than that in order to get things to stop. Does that make sense? Nor do I have to wait for you to hit me in the face in order to get that to stop. And so what we have,
weapon in or no weapon zone.
Correct. So the other guy had no weapons. It wasn't like he was choking him out. If he was choking him out, if he was beating his head into the ground, if there was any worry about serious bodily injury being the word, then you're authorized lethal force. It's still homicide, but he's got to have an affirmative defense to his homicide. And so, again, what type of force was either threatened to be used against him, right? And would a reasonable person had done the same thing, because the reasonable person standard is going to apply to this. So would a reasonable person in his position who's fighting over a chair be able to claim self-defense to the extent that you used lethal and deadly force against somebody else over that incident? And the answer is going to be no. Self-defense would have been applicable if it was like an assault charge. But when you get to this level, it is beyond self-defense. It's just straight murder.
Because I know you said you've been a Denver cop. Here in Colorado, if you have a gun in a no-gun zone and it's a justified shooting, you still go away for a really long time.
Right, because you broke a different law, right? You broke a different law.
So him having the knife, even if he's innocent on the self-defense part, him having a knife at a high school track event is a whole nother situation completely.
Correct. It would be. And I'd also have to see the knife. I didn't look at the blade length. I didn't look at any of that crap.
So it's getting into premeditated at that point.
No, you can't. No, you have to.
In the second degree or
you can't say premeditated at that point, because a lot of people end up carrying pocket knives. A lot of people end up carrying stupid ass. I mean, shit, man. I don't even have my knife on me right now, but a lot of people carry pocket knives. I've got like 5 of them just laying around.
But not in a high school.
What do you mean? I can't carry a pocket knife to a sporting event? Like a little foldable, collapsible pocket knife? Like, I don't know which knife he had.
There were laws against it.
Well, let's get back to the subject at hand. If you want me to, I'll research that. But even then, with premeditation, you'd have to prove that he was carrying that knife with the intent to go there, pick a fight, and stab the guy in the chest, and then claim self-defense. That's a pretty steep burden of proof on that one, for it to be premeditated in that manner.
I was going to say, they already said he did go there looking for a fight, based on, what's it called, when his utterances to the cop as he was being detained and interviewed.
Yeah, I'd have to look at his spontaneous utterances. I remember reading them, but there was none of them within there that made me think it was premeditated.
I'm not alleged I did it.
Well, yeah, he said he did it. That's fine. He admitted to stabbing the guy, but that's not premeditation. That's just him acknowledging the fact that he did it.
Okay, I guess the one I was reading took it out of context.
I would maybe, but like I read over the entire arrest
Actual police
records.
report.
Yeah, the actual report, excuse me. I read over the actual reports of like all the different officers, and there was the one officer that was talking about his spontaneous utterances. And those spontaneous utterances were just mentioning that he had said those things at certain periods of time, but none of them were an admission of premeditation, in my opinion, just that he actually committed the crime or the act.
If anything, they could say it was a crime of passion.
If Seth Scoots is saying that most schools have metal detectors and that, yes, even a little Swiss Army knife would be a crime to have on a high school football event.
Okay. So, good. Let's get back to our illegal immigrant status here, because that was the topic of discussion that we brought up. And I'm just going to point out the fact. Here's what I wrote up over on the over in YouTube for the poll. I said, terrorist in the USA illegally. Was he deported legally? 86% are saying yes, and 14% are saying no. And I'm going to leave that poll running until we're done, just to make it fair. Who's up next that wants to comment on this dude being deported?
Here we go. If you're an illegal, right?
Yep.
You therefore have no right in that country. None of the laws, like, you know what I mean? Like, you have a passport and you have a what is it in America? In England, we have like the national insurance.
Okay. Yeah.
Like,
so
you pay into. You know what I mean? You have zero rights in that country.
So that's not technically how U.S. law is written.
Okay.
Everybody that is within the U.S. border, right, minus these cases that we're talking about, are subject to portions of due process, right?
And that's kind of the same way in Britain, unfortunately, when they come over on boats. It's still a due process to get rid of them, even though they're here illegally, and they shouldn't be here.
If you're an illegal immigrant, right, you still can't, like if I'm a law enforcement officer, if I'm a judge, if whoever, right, any portion of the legal or judiciary system, just because somebody is illegal doesn't mean it takes away my responsibility in order to get a search warrant, for example, or an arrest warrant. Does that make sense? That's what makes the U.S. kind of a pain in the ass. I can't detain them, or I can't detain them and beat them and torture them.
Yeah, so it's more or less a political or policy that is put in place, therefore to practice, and
no, I mean,
someone's got to monetize off of it one way or another, right? Through these policies.
It's the law. I would have to go and look at the law and break down that particular portion of it, and I don't have those notes sitting in front of me. It's a lot of law that goes into that one. But
if you think about it, one section or one building, one whatever you call it, government faction or section, what they're in, someone is getting paid for that job that law is protecting.
Mm-hmm. Somebody just asked, is it true that the murderer's family got over $500,000 from a GoFundMe for this? Yes, he got right around $500,000 from what I saw. That is an accurate statement. Sorry about that. So does he get legal protection? If he was here illegally and he was not a member of a foreign terror organization, then other due process would apply to him. But because under U.S. law, if you are a member of a foreign terror organization and you are in the country illegally, you cannot claim asylum. It does not apply. The only thing that does is like protection from torture or some shit like that. John Wilson coming in and gifting out 20 Speak the Truth memberships. Appreciate you, man. Heather Scott says, love you, Matt, for finding what I couldn't. I'm so mad that the left lied. The right was smug and it caused anxiety. You rock by truth. I couldn't find it. Lynn Boyson, member of 5 months, says, any thoughts on what's happening between the U.S. and South Africa? I'm South African. Afrikaner in Argentina, and it's odd seeing the U.S. remove asylum for many, but streamline for Afrikaners. Love the channel. Thanks for all you do. No, I don't. Something that I might be able to look into. We got a lot of gifted memberships that ended up coming in for a second. Brandon Cook donated $5 and said, "Can we take a moment of silence for the trolls? Thanks for coming." Fox McCloud, ironically, the same people with Ukrainian flags. Yep, we went over that one. All right, Tom Too-Tall gifting out memberships. Brandon Cook gifting out those memberships. Yeah. Yep. Caught up to par now, I believe. Sorry about that.
So while we're talking about the deportation and stuff, did you see that Poland are looking to do a great deportation of migrants?
I did not. I did not see that portion of it.
Reported on Vice Grad, yeah.
Yeah, well, and Poland's been very protective of their borders, and they've done a damn good job for a very good reason, right? So I support them pretty outright. Juice Junkie, let's go to you, and then we'll go up over to Nate, and I'll just start working my way across. We'll do Juice Junkie, Nate, Sinner, John Boy in Texas, if he wants. Go ahead, Juice Junkie. All right, Juice Junkie's not working out. Nate, you up, buddy?
Yeah, when did it, like, if you're in the country illegally, you are a criminal, period.
Correct.
Right off the bat.
Correct.
Like, so when people are like, this guy's not a criminal.
He is.
And then you ask him, well, was he here illegally? Well, then, yeah, he is. He is a criminal. You don't even need to go any further than that.
Correct.
And then when you catch them with guns and drugs, right? So you have like where you start, compounding crimes. So you're a criminal. Now you're an armed criminal, right? That makes things worse. Immediately, he should have been gone, right?
Correct.
Immediately. I don't care if, once you catch a guy who's here illegally, has an illegal firearm on him and drugs, if that were an American citizen, speaking of due process, the full weight of due process would have been thrown at any American citizen for those three things being combined, right?
Correct.
Here illegally, drugs and guns, you're probably going away for a long time, right? Just right off the bat. So if that happened to me, if I had cocaine and a handgun, right, at the same time in the same place, no questions asked. I'm going to jail for a long time.
Right.
And then also the same people that are complaining about this guy being here had a huge problem with trespassers well, you know what I mean? Like if you applied their same stringent requirements for punishing trespassers that they did on January 6th, and then applied that to our entire country, I'd be happy with them, right? If they were fair about their concerns about trespassing and they said, well, anybody that trespasses on American property that shouldn't be should be going to jail. I might have a little more sympathy for their, anger and
their
hatred
cause.
towards the January 6th. Yeah, the January 6th rioters. It's that their inconsistency makes me think that they're just full of shit. So, trespassing is trespassing, no matter how you slice it, no matter where it is. You're not supposed to be here. You're a criminal. It's pretty simple. And furthermore, the same people that say we need to be more like Europe, go ahead and go to a Schengen country and try to stay there for 6 months. Right? You can't in any of them. They'll kick you out. They will send you back to the United States. It doesn't matter if you're there not breaking any laws, just spending a bunch of money on vacation.
Right.
If you're an American, you go to a Schengen country for more than 90 days, they will put your ass on an airplane and send you back to the States. You can't stay there. So we have like we're pretty much the softest country in the world when it comes to people just being allowed to stay here and do whatever they want.
Right.
And we need to toughen the hell up because there's bad people coming here trying to do bad things, and we need to be much more secure with our borders and who has access to this place.
Well, whether or not, and the main thing that you left out of that entire deal is that he's a freaking terrorist now.
Well, yeah, but my point is like before you even get to the point that he's a terrorist. You shouldn't even have to get to. You should.
But the key is
have to get to that point.
But the key is the due process portion of it, which everybody's whining and bitching about, because all of that gets taken away. His alleged asylum or temporary stay that was granted back in 2019, all of that goes away because you're now a foreign terrorist. You're a terrorist in the country illegally. That shit no longer applies.
Well, and let's look at asylum, right? Asylum is not a guaranteed thing. We are not obligated to provide anyone asylum. That's not. We're not. Up, like by our good graces, we can give you asylum.
Correct.
You're also supposed to go to the first safe haven, which he crossed several countries that were safe havens in order to get here. So, according to that, we didn't owe him asylum anyway, under any circumstance. He shouldn't even have been here. He should have gone to the next safest place, the closest safest place. He chose to come to the land of milk and honey because he just wanted to.
Yeah.
And then when he did, he started getting involved in guns and drugs. So screw that guy. He's a turd. He's a turd on many levels. And good riddance.
Yeah. He's gone, and he's not coming back.
That's basically all I had to say.
Matt, real quick, if you look in the chat here on Discord, Amanda just posted something that's another, I guess you could say, allegation against this guy for him being a human trafficker.
Yeah, which is what? A freaking huge thing that freaking gangs do. When you have drugs moving in one direction, you have people that go along with them because you have those little tunnel networks and freaking rat lines that are already established. So getting caught funneling people, according to a reporting in the Tennessee Star, Kilmar Garcia was detained on suspicion of human trafficking by the Tennessee Highway Patrol. Garcia was operating the truck without a license, carrying 7 passengers. Police contacted the FBI, who were instructed them to photograph each person and the contents of the truck, that allowed Garcia and his passengers to continue their trip. Why?
Because that was under the Biden administration.
No, I mean, I can explain this like quite simply, as a matter of fact. Tennessee Highway Patrol doesn't enforce immigration. They're not legally allowed. No state police officer, except I think maybe Texas is doing it now. I think Texas passed a state law, if I remember right. Maybe. I might have to go look that one up again. But as a law enforcement officer, you, like, of a state, not federal, of a state, you can only enforce the freaking laws in which you're employed to do so. So either your state or local ordinances. Does that make sense? So the federal law of illegal immigration, whatever the freaking code is for it, I forget off the top of my head, is not enforceable by state police. It's not enforceable by local police. So when you catch a truckload of illegals like this, then somebody moving them around, you've got shit on them. You can give them a ticket for driving the truck and, passengers or whatever state law is like applicable. You can throw that out there. But what you can't do is arrest them for having all these illegals. They could have towed the vehicle. They could have done a million other things, but they're not allowed to arrest them because of that. Pretty messed up, right? It's the same thing when it comes to, like, let's say, a federal tax stamp. If I'm unless there's state law that goes, in one direction or another, right? And a lot of states have freaking firearms laws about blah, 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 blah. But like that portion of federal law, they don't get a charge. Now they can come after you later. Federal agencies can come after you later for it. But the state can't charge federal law. So he's going to get away. Kind of make sense?
Yep.
All right. Who we got up next? I believe Sinner. All right, got nothing out of Sinner. Let's go to John Boy.
Hey, thank you. It doesn't even matter because even if he was here, let's say he was here legal on a green card, once you violate the law, like you said, and you're an FTO, good riddance.
Right, laws end up not applying.
Yeah, laws don't end up applying at all. So doesn't matter at that point. You're an FTO. So I don't know why people can't get that out of their head.
Well, I think part of the reason is because people aren't using the term terrorist. They're looking at gang.
Yeah.
And if they'd realized that he was actually an identified member of a terrorist organization, they would realize that these different laws actually apply. But they don't. And so people are complaining about due process because, for whatever reason. But the fact that he's a terrorist, he's denied a million different things, including asylum.
Yep.
So that asylum order retroactively it doesn't matter. Even if it was a full-blown asylum order, retroactively doesn't matter. It goes right back before an immigration judge. And the immigration judge gets to determine whether or not there is a fear of torture or whatever of where he's getting sent. And if there's not, then he goes bye-bye. So all of these different federal lawsuits and all this other crap, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yep, exactly.
They didn't
and
just...
another thing is
they
people
didn't
need to take the phrase MS-13 gang and drop the word gang, and it needs to be MS-13 terrorist organization.
correct.
Exactly.
Correct. I mean, we can come up with a different term for it. You know what I mean? However we want to do it. Like we've got radical Islamist foreign terror organizations, whatever. You can call it cartel terrorist organization. I don't know. But we need to come up with a different term because everybody keeps throwing gang out there. And I think that's what's confusing a lot of people about this. I promise you, there was a lot of paperwork that was processed to get his ass flown down to that prison.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of paperwork that ended up getting processed to get his ass flown down to that prison. And they just don't go, you know what? We're going to throw this guy on a random flight and not do any paperwork. So they went through the legal process with all of the likely all of the applicable laws that I just described, and he went bye-bye.
Yep.
Bye.
Exactly. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I just want to point out too, real quick, Senator, before you jump in, I just want to point out too, right now, 88% of the people over on YouTube believe that he was deported legally. Go ahead, Senator.
I mean, I think this is all pretty simple, cut and dry. You know, exactly everything that you stated is correct. And we don't have any obligation to give him the right to due process. And I think the thing that's getting really construed is mainstream media. If you look at all the titles on all of this, they're not saying MS-13 terrorists deported. Everyone's saying wrongfully deported man. Why El Salvador won't return wrongfully deported man? Who is Kilmar, Abrego, Garcia, the man wrongfully deported to El Salvador? They're twisting the facts on who he actually is and making it seem like it's someone that's completely innocent when it's not. So it's just more mainstream media just spinning a narrative. We all know why he's scared to go to El Salvador. It's not because his mom has an underground cookie business. It's because he's going to CCOT, and he know that he's never going to see the light of day again. He's going to be put in that new facility where all gang members go, and he's going to be in a cell with 70 to 80 other men, and that's where he's going to spend the rest of his days.
Where he should, especially if you're doing human trafficking and all this other crap. And those firearms that were found inside of his house are not ones that a lot of gun enthusiasts even have. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous that there's a collective of people in this country working to undermine our national security and create unsafe spaces for American citizens to have to live with these people inside their communities.
Right. Yeah. And you know what the funny part is, like, that I ended up discovering when I was in law enforcement is all of these like communities that people are claiming, cops are abusing and everything else. Those communities actually want, like the actual communities want law enforcement there because they're sick of all the damn crime.
100%.
And it's these woke, and I hate to say it, dude, because it's a lot of liberal ass white women. That's what it is. That are whining and complaining about it. And you end up,
who watch the news.
And you end up,
good man.
you end up having them whine and complain, and those are the ones doing it. But when you actually go to the communities and you're like, hey, do you like people being murdered on your freaking corner every other night? And they go, no. I'd appreciate it if you'd actually come around more often.
Yeah, I mean, another thing too is I don't know why we don't start throwing people in for treason. I mean, I get that might be way too excessive, but if you look at the definition of treason, it's the betrayal of one's country, specifically by waging war against it or giving aid and comfort to its enemies. What do you think the southern border open for the last 4 years was? We were definitely giving aid and comfort to our enemies by allowing them to just measle on through the southern border.
Well,
You know?
how about anybody that's trying to currently start a GoFundMe for this guy, or that's standing around trying to stand up for him and his family?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're giving aid and comfort to a foreign terror organization. Bye. All of these freaking politicians that want to sit around, cool. Now we have politicians that are doing what? All of them need to go. It's treasonous to sit around and try to spin this as if this guy was not a freaking terrorist and due process that he was allotted under law was used. And they're trying to spin it and try to make it seem like something else had to have been done. No. The legal process was complete, and his ass was deported, rightfully so, for the protection of the United States of America and its citizens. That's it. I don't care if you paint him as a family man. Osama bin Laden had a family. Does that change the fact that he's Osama bin Laden? No. Who's up next? Will, you dropped and then you came back in.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir, but yeah, I just think that Senator brought up a good point with the news. I don't watch it anymore, but like he was just listing off the the headlines, and it just makes me wonder, like, and I've heard of, like, in California, is this just a neighbor of a friend of mine had a neighbor, and they had this is a person from that came from Iraq 30 years ago. They had grandchildren, all that stuff, but they never did the right due process of becoming or trying to become a citizen. So they got sent back to Iraq after 30 years, and they don't speak the language, they don't know anything. And you hear all these sad stories, but like the way it's being portrayed on the news and what my grandparents are hearing versus what I watch, which Speak the Truth, things like that. It's very interesting, and I'm curious to know. I try to pay attention to what's going on behind the scenes, but like we never really know. But this is interesting enough of a topic. Obviously, there's plenty of factors that point. Obviously, it was legal, in my opinion. But yeah, I just think that. As divided as we have been, I don't know if we could get any more divided with as far as the news goes. I haven't watched news for years, but I did not realize that was the headlines for this particular case. So
Right.
I appreciate him saying that.
Well, and I went into this looking at the law. What the hell does the law say about it? Screw everybody else. What's the law say about this? And that's what the law says, that DHS, ICE, and the FBI have the ability to do it. And then I checked, okay, well, DHS, here's the DHS document that says he is a member of MS-13, which is now a FTO. What's the process? What are the legal requirements to do it? So now I'm going to go after that document. What are the legal requirements that it takes to get them to put him on that list? And we identified the three main things, right? His affiliation just by being there with two other gang members. Why? Two other known gang members. Why? Because they're not allowed to hang out with each other. And that, again, is in law for how they're allowed to designate. That's number one. Number two, actually identifying himself with them by the clothes he was wearing. And number three, a confidential informant. Not just a little crappy one, but an actually vetted, good, confidential informant. All three of those things are legal in order to designate him a member of this terror organization. And at the time, the gang, MS-13. All three of those things allowed DHS to put him on that list. And they did it. And they did it legally. Regardless of what anybody on the left wants to tell you, that's what the law says. And it's listed in that freaking document that was shared yesterday by Pam Bondi.
Not only that, he's a high-ranking member too, Matt.
Correct.
He's not some little petty street thug.
Correct. And then you take the next step and say, okay, now he's a member, a known member of a foreign terror organization. What's the process look like for deporting a known member of a foreign terror organization? If they're a U.S. citizen or if they're here legally, there's different processes that apply. But the fact that he was here illegally and is a member of a foreign terror organization strips all of that away, and it goes straight before an immigration judge, Asylum does not apply to members of foreign terror organizations that are inside the United States of America illegally. And it goes straight to the immigration judge, and the immigration judge is what determines whether or not he gets to stay. And he's subject to immediate deportation, which is what was done. Case closed. That's what the law says. That's what U.S. law says. If it had said anything different, I'd have been here saying something different. But that's what the law says. Who's up next? Texas, haven't heard from you, brother. You're down there quiet, man. Haven't seen your face in a long time. I've been getting worried about you.
I'm just listening because I don't even get why people are making, like, I don't even get why we're talking about this. The only thing that I was concerned about this whole case where there was this one government official who came up on video saying that he asked to like go see him, and they said, no, we can't allow that. You need to make an application. He said, okay, so can I like have a video chat with him set up? He said, no, we can't do that. We don't have that service in the prison. Can I have a phone call with him? He said, no, we can't do that right now. And I guess he flew down there and it didn't give him access to it.
Correct.
And so he's claiming that what he thinks, and this is like the theory going around, that something might have happened and he died, and they're not saying anything.
No,
and that's
they
that's
just don't have to grant him
nobody's heard
access.
from him. Well, I couldn't like, to me, my opinion is that this is an absolute waste of like human brain cells.
Thank you.
To even like make like, I don't know. I think there's bigger problems going on than
100%.
This guy he is from that country, so like
Correct.
Why don't we just let the El Salvadorian government deal with it, and they decide if they should let him out of prison? That's fine, they'll let him out, and then he can be out in his country. Like I'm so confused. It's like I don't get it. Like, American gets arrested in China, China sends him back to America for a crime, and America decided to let him go or not let him go. It's not China's decision if America should hold him in prison or not. He's not a Chinese citizen. He's not an American citizen. He's not. There's no like. Unless I'm mistaken, he's not an American citizen. So why is it up to the American government to decide if he should be in an El Salvadorian prison or not?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't understand. Like,
it's stupid.
If he's not American, then let's say he's not a criminal or he's not a gang member, then would he like? Why wouldn't he like get released or have his day in court in El Salvador? That's the crimes are there. They didn't charge him here with crimes.
No, they don't have to. It doesn't say he has to be charged with a crime in order to be subject to deportation. Just that he's got to be a terrorist and here illegally. And then nothing else matters.
You don't even have to be a terrorist
you don't.
For subject to deportation.
You don't, but it's also a different process. Then his asylum claim would have actually held some freaking weight. Does that make sense?
Like, to me, it's just so simple. It's like, you're not American, don't complain about it. Like, it's like, I don't know. Like, if I'm in another country right now, in anywhere in Europe, if I'm in the UK right now and I've way past my allowed stay, I'm there illegally, and the UK doesn't want me there, it's not like for the United States to say no, you have to keep him there, or the United Kingdom's people say, oh no, you have to leave him here because he's a cool person. You're not there legally. It's as simple as that. So was his asylum ever granted fully?
No. And even if it was retroactively, it would get denied because he's here illegally, and he entered the country illegally, and he's a member of a FTO.
Yeah, but so that's the question, how the law applies. When he applied for the asylum
after he got caught,
it wasn't. Yeah, but it wasn't an FTO at the time.
Correct. So they granted him a stay until the situation changes. Yeah. Right.
So the question is, can it be revoked just based off the status of the organization's status being changed, or does he have to still be affiliated with the organization after?
Oh my fucking God. You're not going
What?
to believe this shit.
Might just believe it if you tell me.
I got to look it up. I got to verify this. Go ahead. Keep talking as I verify this.
Yeah.
Hey, while you're verifying that,
Then it says absolutely waste of time for. I don't even like. It's not even about taxpayers' funds. I don't even care about taxpayers' funds because you know what? At the point is the taxpayers' funds is going to get spent in a waste one way or the other for the most part. But what I care about is like literal energy of people. Like it's like there is so much. Can we talk about like a different subject? Like there's so much more important things. Here we go. What do you find? Oh, there's a GoFundMe for this guy now. What the actual like
$215,000.
That is absolute. I don't even want to curse, but that is fucking retarded. I'm sorry for my language
But
to
notice,
YouTube, to everybody else.
Notice how they did it for his family. Because if they do it for him, you're supporting a foreign terror organization.
Oh, there's gonna be some charges
So they
if
put
they
it for
did
his
it for
family.
him. Pat Bundy is gonna sit there licking their fingers if that was for him. I don't get it. And who are the like public people just snap and spend money? There's
Miscellaneous Women Candle Company,
people.
$3,723. Holy shit.
Listen to this. Tell me something. There's 4,000 individuals that made a donation closing to close to $250,000.
Holy shit.
Ridiculous.
Holy shit.
not only the donation part of that, Matt, but have you also seen Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen?
No.
From Maryland. He went to El
Oh,
Salvador.
yeah. No, I saw that. Yeah, no, I saw that, and I saw that, and they ended up telling him to like kiss off. They like
pretty much. They're like, go home.
Right.
Like, why are you here?
Cool. So now you're going down there.
Saying he's an innocent man and needs to be let out. This is the kind of bullshit that they're spinning.
Can we talk about Ukraine for a second, Matt?
Yeah, go for it. Send it. What's happening?
Can we talk about how the rumors of Trump apparently dropping the talks of $300 billion, and now it's at like let's just do.
He lowered it. He lowered the
billion.
Yeah, he lowered the actual amount of aid that went to the country from 300 billion down to about 100 billion, is what they said.
Yeah, like and he like in there. So I don't know. And today, and he did that when was this announced? Last night. I mean, by you guys, by us, the end of the day yesterday, and this morning, early this morning, and now it's the same time that in Paris they're having the talks with Ukraine. I guess the second round of
yeah, and what do you think is going to come out of this?
I hope they're going to do this $50 billion deal. I really do. Like I can tell you, somebody asked last night a question. Was it last night or it was on Discord, and somebody asked the question, what is it going to actually take? Yeah, it was last night. It was like, what's it actually going to take? Like what does Ukraine need from the United States most? And it's two things. It's as much as everybody thinks it's more. It's two things that they need most of everything. It's obviously very well capable Patriot air defense assets, and it would be really nice to have a license to produce the missiles for it, the rockets for it, and so like that you don't have to deplete the United States' stockpiles and ally stockpiles, where you can just give them a batch and give them the licensing, and then they can set up production for it on their own. Which Ukraine has been asking for, and long-range capabilities, which the United States has enough of. Like if you look at the stockpile numbers, according to like the public information, and if you assume that the public information is a lot lower than the actual information, based off what we know, then the United States has enough of long-range capabilities because they don't use them that often.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
yeah, those are the two things that I think if he can get a deal working, and if Putin's gonna keep pushing Trump's buttons, which I hope he does, I just hope Trump steps up and says, you know what, I gave this man his shot to be the guy that I trusted him to be. Now I'm the businessman. I want to make America rich again, and I'm gonna take this business of 50 billion plus another 100 billion plus whatever all this money that he can do through Ukraine and through this. I don't know. I just think that that's something that needs to happen, and we over here, the boys and everybody here, just need to get to work with the equipment immediately because as far as I know, and as far as the conversations that I've had recently, the places that I was recently in to talk to people, it's just been pretty much holding and very like just defensive. Like every time Russia pushes, they get smacked in the teeth, they pull back, the Ukraine holds, rotates out, a couple of weeks later, a couple of days later, they do another push, they get smacked in the teeth, they roll back. There's not much offensive happening. There's some smaller offensive operations happening around this. It's getting like in Ukraine right now, the weather is beautiful. Like I'm talking about, it's like probably the nicest weather I've had in a long time, and it's what we call fighting season. And if Ukraine, if the U.S. wakes up and makes something happen, and they actually like stop sleeping on it, and they just get a move on it, I think that it'll be okay. But in the meantime, it's been a problem. Air defense is depleting. You can see it in cities. Last night, the Dnipro got hit. Another 2 children died, and apartment building. Like major cities are getting hit just because there's a lack of
air defense assets.
Larger. There's a lot of AAA like mounted 50s and like other types of AAA assets. But there isn't like proper anti-air stuff like to take out ballistic missiles. There isn't enough. The Italians, the British, the all the systems that they have over here, the missiles are running low. And like I said yesterday, somebody's like, oh, so I get it. So what are you going to do with air defense assets? You have to decide where to put them. Am I going to protect this hospital or this power plant to save power for a city of 3 million, 4 million, or 5 million people? Or am I going to put it near the front and stopping bombs from dropping by these planes coming and flying? And so it's a very difficult situation. With one of the hardest things is to make decisions of where to place air defense assets, because you place in one place thinking that that's going to save a lot of people, and it happened to be an attack somewhere else where you had it or you could have had it, and it's not there. So I don't know. I think the United States needs to step the fuck up, to be very fair, like, and take the money. Stop crying about Russia. Everybody knows your military intels, your military generals, the people on the ground are telling you facts. They're coming out publicly and stating the state that the United States is with Russia. The as much as I don't like her, Tulsi Gabbard sat there and she said that Russia still opposes a threat to the United States, if you like it or not, basically in very nice words, not to offend the Russian government or whatever. Like, she said it in a very nice way, but if you 1 + 1 + 1, you know the answer to that, and it basically said, yes, Russia is a threat and is growing to our European allies and to the United States. Why don't we just stop this nonsense? Like, United States doesn't need to bomb Russia. They don't need to do any of that stuff. They need to just keep doing what they did, and just on a larger scale. Don't give them, sell them. Like I said, I don't know,
Matt.
Yeah. So I gotta tell you guys, I'm sorry, I've got to run. I've got some other stuff that I just started dealing with over here on the other side. It's also, I've been streaming for almost 2 hours now, so I'm gonna go ahead and back out because I also have to take a piss.
Yeah,
that's just a thing, man. That's how life works.
I'll hold the Discord open.
Hey, Matt, real quick.
Okay.
Real quick, Matt. Hey, have a good day, man. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Will. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, bro. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me for another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I'll see y'all tonight. Peace, love, happiness, and God bless. Oh, I forgot to tell you, we also have Nate Vance, who's going to be on his way back, and we're going to be doing an exclusive interview with him as well, and get caught up on everything that he's been up to, and probably be going over a lot of the way forward for Ukraine, what the issues are, where to go. I don't know, man. Who knows? But I'm going to get him on an actual microphone this time, have him sitting over here behind the same desk that I am, and we are going to run this one down.